But first, having listened to the presentations or the talks from ITB and Nottingham, I do have some questions for the university leaders here, the ITB and UON, and also representing representing universities in this room. What do you see in terms of research collaboration, things that we have to focus on in terms of research collaborations between UK and Indonesia? I know there are some mentions about ships being needing to be restored, but in terms of your roles as a university leader, what should be the focus of research collaboration be? First, perhaps for Dr. Putri, the microphone is there on behalf of ITB, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, one of our vision during these 4 years, our focus in research is how to develop research culture in our community. That's the best, that's the most vision for our institution. So everything regarding research, including the research collaborations, it's mean that our leaders hopes that this activity will develop the research culture for our community. That's the thing.
Thank you very much. The same question to you, Shearer.
Thank you. I do think that one thing that brings us together are, for lack of a better word, sustainable development goals. And if you look at the priorities of the Indonesian government or the UK government, it's about solving global challenges or addressing global challenges. And I think that the networks and activities we've had so far have been very much focused on some of those challenges. So I think that's what we look at. And I think that the comment earlier, I think that Summer made about impact, that we want to work collaboratively in an interdisciplinary way on research that is going to have a positive impact on society.
Well, thank you. Do you want to chip in, Summer? There's another microphone.
If I may, yes, thank you. Because last week we had some colleagues from our department for, so it's called BASE, so Department for Business, Energy and Industry Strategy. Yes, it's always a mouthful. So they are the department in the UK that manages that delivers the Newton Fund. So we had them out here. We organized a session with the Newton Fund alumni that we have been working with over the last 8 years. And one of the questions we asked them is, why Indonesia? Newton Fund operates in many other countries worldwide. Why Indonesia? Why is it so important here? And I think it became very clear, as both colleagues have mentioned. I think through the project we have supported, we can see that there are real issues Indonesia is trying to address, and then where the UK has a lot of experience in dealing with that, such as disaster management, such as climate change, such as green economy. So I think that's where the match is made in heaven, in the sense that, lots of, Indonesian partners talked about the struggle they have from their community, from their cities, from their provinces. And then they look to the UK because they have read about what the UK's researchers have done. So I think that's a great link. And it's a win-win situation because through the research, I think the Indonesian partners are able to address some real issues and commercialize the research that will make it more viable and sustainable. And at the same time, it provides great data and specimen, as you mentioned, Dr. Bagus, to the UK colleagues to be able to work together and then, test out some of the theories. So I think that's what binds us together. And that's what I think, back to what Professor West has said, is sustainable because it's addressing real issues, benefiting real communities. And then that's how we can make science and research live and relevant to everyday lives.
Thank you. Let me shamelessly promote my own research interest here in regards to what you just said. Because you said it's a match made in heaven. Because I do a little bit about geothermal research. And then sitting beneath our feet is over 50% of the world's geothermal reserves. And then the UK has the likes of British Geological Survey, which is the oldest geological institutions in the world. And then, this is some areas where the two countries can work together. Now, segueing into you, Wisnu, I would like to, because we have these research collaborations that both country has the appetite for collaboration. But what do you see as facilitators of stronger research, the challenges that's facing in your role, Indonesia, in order to make stronger research collaborations with the UK?
Thank you very much, Bagus. So from the endowment fund institution like LPDPs, we are strongly support and facilitate the fund. And then about the topics itself is depend on the. I think this should be aligned with the national agenda in Indonesia, and also with the priority of each university. So I think as the PMO, Project Management Office, under the Directorate General of Higher Education, we cooperate, coordinating with the Directorate General to select with the topics which have a national impact, priority impact for the national agenda. And then the topic itself or the research itself depend on each university and the researchers. I think that.
I see. For those who, it's been on the slides before, but the RISPRO UKICIS that the LPDP had kindly facilitated for focus on the 5 research areas: the green economy, blue economy, digital, technology, health, and sustainable tourism. And this is in line with the national priorities, as also uttered by President Joko Widodo. And so, please prepare some of your questions. But I do have another follow-up questions to the university leaders here. What do you see in terms of your role in the globally more and more connected world? From a representative from Indonesian universities and from the representative from the UK universities, what do you see as your roles, particularly in regards to addressing challenges such as what you have mentioned before, climate change, pandemic, natural disasters? Perhaps this time from you, Shearer, first.
Okay, that's a big question. I think our role as leaders is to facilitate the opportunities for collaboration among our researchers, because we're not the ones doing it. Our colleagues are doing it. And I do feel that we're in a very complicated world now, but we do know that the best researchers working with the best researchers wherever they happen to be are going to produce the best science. So I think that we need to facilitate as leaders and make sure that we can break down the barriers.
Yeah. Thank you very much. The same questions to you.
Thank you.
Putri.
Yes, thank you. I guess in ITB we have one research center doing with for natural disaster and also for climate. And for some years, our leaders is very concerned about the climate change, and the leaders support that this research should also to include some technology. So as we know that as far as we have data, so we can do we can include some technology for analyze the data. But for ITB itself, climate change is one big issue for the research proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, certainly to address these big questions, climate change, we just had this pandemic. You need to accelerate innovations that enables you to tackle these challenges. And some of the problems that I see, and this is also relevant questions to you, Wisnu, later, is how do you change or even expedite translation of research into innovation? Because without the innovation, without the product like Genos, one of our own products to determine the infection of COVID-19, you wouldn't really get the real impact. How do you accelerate research to innovation?
Okay, thank you very much. In Indonesia now, the Endowment Fund for Research, the LPDP has partners like BRIN, Indonesian Research Innovation Agency. We share the function of with the BRIN. In the LPDPs, we try to develop research for development. That means that we try to now not start with the research comes from the researchers. We try to now, at least in 1 or 2 years, we try to make another models of research funding. We connect the industry first. We have a communication with the industry first. What's their real problem with the technology? And with the industry, we develop the term of reference, and then we try. And then after that, we make a call for proposals to the university or research institution who will have the technology can help the industry. Means we try to start from the end, start from the industry and back to the science. Maybe in the BRIN, research in the National Research Institution Agency, start research from the researchers, but LPDP now sharing the function with the university and the research institution. We start from the need, the industrial need, the user.
Yeah, BRIN is conveniently translated into UKRI straightforwardly. Shearer is like a UK Research and Innovation Agency. Right. So, learning from, you mentioned quite conveniently about your attempt, perhaps Indonesia's attempt to expedite translation from research to innovation. From the UK, and I could perhaps see you as a representative from the UK body, being British Council. What are the best practices that you can share? And this is also to you as well, Shearer. From the university and from British Council, what do you see the UK have done in terms of translating research into innovation that perhaps can be shared to the Indonesian audience? Perhaps to Shearer first?
Just quickly, research is a complex ecosystem, and you need people doing research that's not going to quickly go to innovation, as well as what you're talking about. But I think that working early in collaboration with industry is one of the ways of achieving this. And I think you were alluding to that as well. So not just what industry is looking for to solve their problems, but the research teams working closely with them as partners from an early stage of the research is one of the good ways to accelerate the innovation.
Early start with the industry.
Yeah, I would very much echo that. And I think in addition, perhaps to that industry link, is also thinking about the communities that you represent. I think that's particularly relevant for Indonesia. So the early example I mentioned, when I spoke to this researcher about this app that he's developing for the fisherman, because he's like, well, I come from a fishing village. Lots of my families and friends, they go out without knowing whether they will make it back safely or not. And then that inspired me, that wanting to develop an app that will allow them to go out and come back safely. So I think that's addressing a real issue that the community faces. So I think, coupled with the industry link, I think that makes it, easier to translate the research into something that's of commercial value and something that will be, of popularity and real benefits to the society as well. And then maybe I can just build on that in terms of, what we can do as institutions, organizations, and, funding partners to enable that. I think there's something also about sharing lessons learned and sharing best practice on a multi-country forum so that, lots of the, for example, issues are faced by several Southeast Asian countries in the context of ASEAN. So I think it's useful to, bring people together and look at the co-creation in addition to the bilateral relationship that we already have through the UK-Indonesia research collaboration, but bringing other partners in from like-minded, countries. So you mentioned earlier there's or Dr. Reno mentioned there's a German partner that might come in as well. So I think that's interesting. And then because some of the challenges are faced, by several countries. The other thing I think, again, that will support this, translation is to have strong monitoring and evaluation, and then to think about that from the outset, and also develop the capacity of monitoring and evaluation, within the researchers, because sometimes that is perhaps, not given enough emphasis. So I think that's something else really important to set out right from the start. And I think also, there is, I think, going back to one point I made, targeting emerging researchers. So right from day one, as they, sort of finish their master's or PhD and then start their research journey, I think that's when they need most of the support in terms of networking, in terms of know-how. So I think that what we can do to develop their capacity and then create platforms for them to link and learn from others, I think that will give them a head start as they start their research journey.
Thank you. Shearer said something about engaging industry early. You mentioned about engaging communities, and particularly relevant in the Indonesian setting. Wisnu, do you think in the future LPDP programs that you could also have industries joining in, or community groups or organizations joining in the same platform as the likes of RISPRO UKICIS?
Yes, I think we can develop that the concept of the triple helix, something like that. The triple helix, the community of self and the industry. We try to now with Newton Fund, try to early talk about how you can co-funding the project with the Newton Fund. Means that or the philanthropists can join us. The government of Indonesia have a lot of money, and then we have to share with another. I mean that another source of funding means that with the big amount we can attract as their co-funding. And also with the industry itself, I mentioned the industry is not getting for free. They have to share the resources and the funding itself. I mean that maybe 60-40, 60 by the LPDPs, 40 the industry, or 50-50. So we try to attract Indonesian industry and community to develop research funding. Yeah, and then with the industry, the government offer the super deduction tax. So if the industry spend some money for the research, they can get tax deduction, or we call super deduction tax. Means that the attractive the fiscal and financial incentive for the industry, and maybe the community if they can sharing with in kind or in cash. Yeah. We try to develop the new innovation environment ecosystem.
I see, sharing resources as well as sharing risks, actually.
Yes, of course, the risk.
Right, because it is a risky enterprise, research is. In the UK, don't we have something like this? Something like Innovate UK, wouldn't it?
Yes, it's part of the UK Research and Innovation. There's a separate organization called Innovate UK that really does encourage the university business links. I would say that just on the point you just made, that research is always a surprise, and no research program or project ever comes out with what it thought it would at the beginning, and it's usually better. But it's always different because as you conduct the research, you discover things that you didn't expect. So I just thought it's worth mentioning that.
Right, it is. And to your point before, you said evaluation, but this is a risky enterprise. You wouldn't know what exactly you're getting. How do you measure research you get? How do you evaluate research in terms of its impact? How do you make sure the people know British Council project successful?
Okay,
what are the metrics?
I think there are two questions there. One is about monitoring and evaluation. I think there's a way to set up all the indicators, and then looking at the impact, the citation, and the translation value, the commercial value. So I think there is that side, which I think there's more that we can do in terms of developing that capacity. The second question is actually another point I wanted to make. How do we know if the projects are successful? I think in addition to the monitoring and evaluation, the real translation commercial value is about the communication. Because sometimes I feel we don't have enough visibility of the fantastic researchers that the scientists and researchers have done. Like I say, during the gathering session last week, I learned more than I probably read in the last 5 years about the research collaboration between Indonesia and the UK. And I was really inspired and thought, how can we get these stories out there? You know, how these researchers are supporting real communities. So I think there is a bit about how we can get researchers or organizations to be able to communicate and tell the compelling story. The British Council used to run a competition called FameLab. So this is basically, we ask the young researchers to the stage, give them 3 minutes, and then explain their research and or a very, difficult, complex scientific topic to the audience to get the message across, such as, nanotechnology or artificial intelligence. So I think it was really inspiring to see that, because then once the audience get it, once the general public get it, then there's more buy-in and more support. So I think that's the part that we could help researchers do in terms of capacity building, so that they are changing lives and making the world a better place. And it's our role to promote that and then inspire more people.
Thank you. Great answer. We already have a buy-in from the audience right now. So I see Professor Fasli Jalal in the audience from Universitas Yarsi. Please, can you tell us who your questions are addressed to?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bagus. As mentioned before, I'm from Yarsi University, and I'm the president of the university. I would like to ask all of you, right now, close 1 to 4 of Indonesian children are stunting, which will affecting their social development and intellectual development and productivity, and also they are very prone to non-communicable diseases later on. So the president has chaired the special committee on addressing stunting, because the cause of stunting is multi-dimension, from poverty, from behavior, communication, lack of the good behavior, and from availability of food, nutritious food, and also the parenting quality of the household. So I'm now chairing the consortium of 280 universities in Indonesia, helping the 314 local government to reduce the prevalence of stunting. So then from policy, financing, the institutional setting is quite okay right now. But we are lack on the research support from genomic, who are really prone on to become stunting, and then from the community point of view, what kind of the indicator can be developed together with community, and then what kind of effective intervention to be provided by different layer of government and different sector involved. Because right now, 23 ministers responsible in their own portfolio. And for ITB, for example, because we have 2 prongs of approach. One, what we call nutrition sensitive intervention, which is 70% of the result coming from this. And then nutrition specific intervention, which is the traditional nutrition program, which is held by Ministry of Health. But for water and sanitation and hygiene and behavior of the community in using water and sanitation is one of the most problematic right now, Putri. Can the ITB, because ITB so far is not joining this big consortium by university, IPB already, UI already, Gajah Mada, but can we orchestrate this, and especially for Pak Wisnu, how come the research funding from LPDP can also support if we map out what kind of research agenda needed and who does what and for what particular objective? And then in this regard, can the UK join this? Because we can start from genomic, from the cellular aspect. We can go to the health services in the hospital, in the community health sector, and then from public health point of view. But I think the most important thing is what we call BCC, behavior change communication, which is also multi-sectoral. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a salient point there from Professor Fasli Jalal, perhaps for Shearer. So this stunting, or in the UK we commonly call it failure to thrive, right? It's a common, very often singled out by the president himself as a prevalent problems in Indonesia. The questions I think is pretty clear. So perhaps from ITB and for the rest of the panelists, what can we do about it in regards to stronger UK-Indonesia collaborations? Would you like to start, Ibu Putri?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Professor Jalal. Yeah, our rector has identified this issue. She mentioned in several meetings how important that ITB contribute in the stunting problems. And as far as I know, one of our school, that is School of Life Science and Technology, has been pointed out by our rector as a leader for these problems. And I know that I think for the fund of 2022, our rector has give more attention regarding the funds for ITB to help this problem. And of course, we very delighted to join with UK to really focus for this problem together. Yeah.
It's obviously a huge problem, and I think I would say two things: one general and one specific. The general one is that this is exactly the kind of issue where you need social scientists. We've been talking a lot about technology and innovation, but you need a lot of social science input into this. But having said that, I also want to sort of make a note that my colleague, Louise, who's here, has been working with midwifery programs in Indonesia. And I know that this is an issue that's part of the conversation that you're having with your colleagues in other universities. I don't know if you want to say anything about it.
There's a microphone there, Louise, if you...
Yeah, thank you. So hello, everybody. So I am midwifery, and I've been working with midwives across Indonesia for a number of years now. And one of the issues that came up during the June visit was around stunting. We did used to call it failing to thrive. We've now got a new terminology of faltering growth within the UK. But obviously within the World Health Organization, they do refer to it as stunting. And I think there's lots of work, as we've been saying, it's actually got to be a collaboration of a number of different professions. But I think midwifery is going to play a huge part in this, because if we care for the health and well-being of our women whilst they're nurturing and growing their babies, then we can actually have babies born that are a good weight, and babies are a good weight and then are fed properly in their early years, then those are the things that we need to use. But quite possibly it is about education. We come, all of us, with a cultural background where sometimes now that doesn't necessarily help with babies thriving and growing and developing as they should. So there is a lot of work that we need to be doing across a number of professions, that we can come together. And there's one project that we'd started with Erlanger of putting together an education program that would help with mothers to help tackle stunting. And once we know we've got that funding, then hopefully we'll be able to take that forward. But if anybody wants to come speak to me about this, then please do.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you very much. Wisnu, would you like to chip in on the stunting?
Thank you, Pak Fasli Jalal. He's my senior. Yes, today the fund from LPDP is run by the BRIN. It's about 400 billion. You can direct go to BRIN, Pak, and ask, because they are every 2 months usually they open for call for proposals. The system is a merit system. your proposal should be reviewed by reviewer, and if to pass, you can get the funding for your proposal. But we can talk later, Pak, habis ini.
Please stay, Pak Sejalan.
Yeah, I mean that the endowment fund for the research invest by LPDP, but the using of the running the program is BRIN. Okay. Yeah, but you can talk with BRIN and also with LPDP because we have another source of the money. I think that's all. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Pak Wisnu. We have in the audience a Miss Prodita from The Conversation Indonesia, Editor-in-Chief and CEO. Please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to say congratulations for this wonderful, wonderful initiative.
Thank you.
At The Conversation, we're part of like the intermediary within the research ecosystem. I was sitting here and also thinking about this idea of making sure that the research that has been carried out through this research collaboration can be communicated to the public. I was about to ask in the panel, the panelists were talking about monitoring and evaluation and making sure that there's early talks with industries from the start. And then Pak Summer mentioned about making sure that the communicating of the research is carried out as well. And I want to, from the conversation, I want to say that we would love to be part of this initiative and be part of the activities of communicating research out there to the public. And I want to, ask within each organizations, for all the people sitting there, how big is the investment, I guess, the investment and priority to make sure that communication is part of research activity? So that's my question.
It's a very good point. Before I give it to the panelists, I just want to announce that the RISPRO UKICIS will be collaborating with The Conversation so that for every research produced through this funding, we will try to make sure at least that the community gets to know what this is all about at the minimum, at the maximum to get actually the translation of its research into the betterment of their well-being. The question is a good one. So what are the level of investment? Perhaps from ITB first, I think it's relevant to all of you in regards to ensuring there is a communication element in that.
Thank you. The question is really what hit me very hard because is your question is about research. Honestly, I have to tell that at the moment, ITB hasn't been put some funding for research and communication. But as leaders, we do aware, and also we not only aware, we struggle with the issue of communication. So our leader has put some fund for hire a consultant to help us for doing a good communication. So we haven't been thinking about the research, but maybe I will point Mr. Rino because he is in charge for determine the research topic for every year. So I think this may be a good, because maybe as an engineer, most of us are engineers. So sometimes we take for granted about communication. So we think that everything solved by mechanics, tools, something like that. But when for me, actually before I'm appointed by Rector as a Vice Rector, I'm just an ordinary lecturer. And my background is in Informatica. You know, Informatica is we just talking about machine, something like that. And the first years when I was doing my duty, I struggle with communication. So sometimes we have some policy and it has been go through the community, and this very, very struggling for us. So thank you very much. So we will pay more attention for communication regarding research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, please.
First of all, the conversation is a very powerful platform to reach out to the public. So I appreciate the collaboration that you've offered with UKICIS. We do think a lot about communication in the UK. Our UKRI, our research funding body, expects researchers to reach out to the public in a variety of ways. Our communications team within the university has a very strong focus on research communication. And we even have an Institute of Policy and Engagement in Nottingham, which is designed to help build the capability of our staff, our researchers, to communicate their work, which is, kind of overcoming some of the problems you're talking about. If you're a specialist in one area, you're not necessarily, communications is not your thing. So I just think it's very important, and just want to thank you for bringing it up.
The same question.
Yes, thank you very much. I think with the conversation, LPDP has more than one conversation. I think we have to talk about it before, because as a public organization, we have to responsible for the public as using the public funding. So I will support everything about the news or the result, and usually we put in our website to be reached by everybody, and also some occasion we invite the conversation to make the result of our research will be can reach to the community. I agree with you, and then we can our communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to that?
Just to say from our from our experience, I think there are various arrangements between the different delivery partners of Newton Fund and also the different activities. But I feel that there's always more that we can do. And also, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's about bring it to life, so I think sometimes we focus a lot on the quantitative data. I think it's more of the qualitative data that, sort of the real stories that will touch people. So I think that's where we can focus more. And then that's what we as an organization, the British Council, want to do more. So it's great that, the conversation is offering this opportunity. So right now we are looking at impact stories from the last 8 years from managing Newton Fund. So I would love to collaborate with you in the conversation, and then bring to life some of our researchers. I mean, they talk passionately about what they do far better than I can explain. So I think it's about giving them the spotlight and then showing how they are helping their communities and making this world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, connecting with the broader audience is very important. I do from time to time utilize my Instagram for that purpose, so please do. All right, that's a nice segue. We do have time for one more question from the audience, and then I see, please could you first introduce yourself, Bapak?
Yes, thank you. So I'm Arif Arialsam. I'm the Dean of Medicine in Indonesia. Yes, so just for information, until now, I think we have collaboration with Nottingham and also Coventry. And also, my researcher have got the Newton Fund before research about the fungal in Indonesia. My question to Pak Wisnu in LPDP, we have a program that we call double degree programs for undergrad. Our student can get MD from us and then get Master of Research from Newcastle, UK, and Bachelor of Science, Monash and Melbourne. And also we have a double program for specialist residency. They got specialists from us and got a Master Research from Melbourne. So the question is, it is possible to our student can get scholarship from LPDP, especially for taking degree from abroad, like from Newcastle, or maybe we start to to talk about the double degree with the Coventry for our PhD programs or something like that. So it is important. I mean, it is possible if LPDP can support these programs, especially just for taking a degree from abroad university. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak. Usually, LPDPs have since 2010 and to not now, we have called the scholarship for the master and PhD degree only, what we call the native program of the LPDPs. Start from 2020 with the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research Technology. We have another you call program Merdeka Belajar or ISMA, something like that. So the requirement for the LPDP is the student should be master or for the PhD or should be have S1 in Indonesia for the get the master degree. But we have to say that what they are means that they start from the beginning, not continuing give scholarship continuing. I mean that you could start from master 1 year and then you ask for another 1 year. Usually we start from the beginning for the master and the PhD. And you can also read the requirement, the condition in our website, because I'm not tidak ingat one by one, but for the double degree means as long as meet the requirement for the condition of the LPDP, you can have a communication with us. But usually we give the master and the PhD.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have only that much time to cover such a wide-ranging topic. I'd like to try to bring the thread of the discussions together. We have discussed identifying research focus to collaborate between the UK and Indonesia. We have established that we do have some really, we use the term a match made in heaven, as you said, really, because it's really complementary what the UK and Indonesia has. And then we have talked a little bit about provision of funding to promote this research partnership. We talk about monitoring and evaluation. We talk about the importance of communicating our research and its impact to the broader audience. And we have talked about some important issues like stunting. We're talking about many different things, but it's certainly not enough. And the UKICIS is one that aims to become as inclusive of an organization as possible. And so attending with us here are other UKICIS members and also non-members, the new members and soon-to-be members in the future. So with that, I would like to first close this discussion session. And please give a round of applause to our panelists. And as I welcome